Hi guys, hope you're all doing well. Today I'm bringing you some BF5 RTX gameplay. But first I just want you to appreciate this clip. Up on the bridge here. Spotted the Tiger tank there. Gunner on the top. Let's try and take him out. Don't know what the tank was doing there. Did get the kill on the gunner. But as a scout you don't really get any anti-tank gadgets, but I'm just trying to spot him. Gunner respawns, does a bit of damage, and then good night. Horrible. Couldn't really do much there at all. So this is RTX gameplay. What does that mean? Well, if you've been paying attention to the gaming news in the last week or so, or maybe you saw the Nvidia conference from Gamescom, then you'll know that Nvidia have announced a couple of new products, some new graphics cards using a new technology, a new architecture called Turing. And that brings with it something called ray tracing, or as Nvidia are calling it, RTX. What is ray tracing? Well, it's quite complicated and I'm not going to talk through a really detailed and accurate explanation of what exactly it is, but what you need to know is that it makes games look more realistic, the lighting, the shadows, but it can also give you real-time reflections. That's something that's been almost impossible to do really in video games using the technology that we've had in the past, but these new graphics cards can do ray tracing in real time, and BF5 was one of the first ever games that was seen using these new GPUs and ray tracing RTX technology. Take this clip here for example, looking at myself, and then I see a reflection of a soldier running behind me. I thought it was an enemy running towards me down the street. So if we just take a look back at that again in slow motion, let's understand what happened there. I'm looking at myself. It is real time. You see the guy pop in there in the background in the reflection running towards me. I caught him in the corner of my eye and I thought it was an enemy coming this way towards me down the street. Because in my brain I'm like, well, in Battlefield there's no reflections. There can't be anyone behind me. It's just a guy running towards me. To get ready, aim down the sight. No, it was just a teammate behind me. Because it's not reflected the user interface. It's just reflected the player model. Very interesting, quite surprising really. That caught me off guard. You probably noticed that it doesn't reflect everything. There's a cut-off limit where it starts to occlude, because if it reflected everything then the performance would just be, it'd be like 1 frame per second. Wouldn't be good. But talking about frames per second, I was playing this on a RTX 2080 Ti, which is going to be the flagship graphics card in this new lineup. I'm hoping that they release a RTX Titan down the line just for the lulz, see how powerful it is. So this was on a 2080 Ti and I was playing in 1080p, all on ultra settings. I think I turned motion blur off in the vignette and film grain because no one really wants that on, do they? But I think I'm a pretty good judge of frames per second, and we were playing this on a high frequency monitor. I reckon that this was running at between 60 to 80 frames per second on a 2080 Ti at 1080p ultra settings. Make of that what you will. I was told that the RTX build of the game had only really been running on the RTX hardware for about 2 weeks, so the developers at DICE only had a couple of weeks to implement this into the game. So in terms of optimizations, then there wasn't really much going on there, but I can tell you that Digital Foundry, who are another YouTube channel, they make great technical breakdowns and content on games and all sorts of stuff, they attended some kind of after hours developer session where they got to talk more to the developers and learn exactly about what the implementation here is like. And the developers told them that these are actually dialed back settings. So when they've optimized everything, they can start to increase the range of reflections and the level of detail in them. It's going to look better and crisper. The overall fidelity of the image will improve. What do I think about it? Well, based on the build that I played at Gamescom, sometimes it looks incredible, absolutely gorgeous, some of the best lighting, shadows, reflections in puddles that I've seen in any game. We already know that the Frostbite engine is one of the best looking engines in terms of visual fidelity and graphics, and with RTX there are moments where you just look at it and the shadows and the lighting is perfect, the way the light is baking onto the ground and the side of buildings, and the shadows aren't hard anymore, they look good. Reflections in the puddles, in the windows, in shiny cars. Sometimes it looked absolutely incredible. And as you saw there were a couple of stutters. Whenever the hint system or parts of the HUD would come up, it would stutter a few times, but the guys told me that was just a bug. And here I was thinking about, well, if this is based on real reflections and the way light works, then technically you could use a window like this to see around a corner. If there was an enemy soldier on the corner of the street behind me to the left, then I would be able to see them in that reflection. That's kind of cool. I don't think that's ever going to give you an advantage in such a fast-paced game like this. You probably wouldn't even notice it, but it's an interesting thought and topic to discuss. And as you saw earlier, there was a point where I thought there was an enemy running behind me that I couldn't see. I would have heard them, I think, but if it was an enemy, then that reflection would have alerted me to them. So it does add a bit of an element there to gameplay, having real-time reflections like this. But I'm sure there will be people who are saying, well, if you've got an RTX card and you're using ray tracing, then it's pay to win. I guarantee you that conversation will come up at one point. I think mostly, though, this is about making games, the lighting, the shadows, the reflections more realistic and believable, and just increasing the overall fidelity and believability of games. Now, I don't know how many of you guys watched the Nvidia conference or you've seen the highlights, but during that they also demoed Tomb Raider and Metro, and in those games, they're both single player games, when they turned the RTX on compared to off where old systems were being used, the RTX on scene just had so much more life and warmth and believability to it. So I think for single player games in particular, where the frame rate really doesn't matter so much and you're not trying to be hyper competitive, this technology really is going to push things forward. And give it 2 to 3 years, when people have really started building games from the ground up with this technology, we're going to have some incredible looking games. And I personally can't wait to see what developers can do with this tech, because it's very powerful and it is something new that's useful. I'm sure a lot of you guys have now seen the Cyberpunk 2077 gameplay demo that they released a couple of days ago, and it turns out that that wasn't using RTX and it looked that good and next gen. So imagine they put RTX stuff on top, and the shadows and the lighting and the neon lights of that universe that they've created will just look absolutely amazing. Now, I wanted to show you some parts that I thought looked really good in the BF5 demo. This area, the whole broken rubble area, the light there just looks absolutely incredible. I can't get over that. And then the White House area here, it's got all marble floors and gold stairs and shiny surfaces. Look at the way the light and the shadows look there as they're beaming through the window, and you can see your reflection in the shiny stairs here. Just about. Wiggling around there. Let's go up again and just, I mean, it's all real time. It looks absolutely gorgeous. You see yourself, you see reflections of other players in real time, enemy players. You can, if you look hard enough, you see yourself in the floor there too. Not quite as shiny as looking into a glass window though, that one, but very impressive, this area. And here I was trying to see, can I see the fire in the reflection of my gun here? That fire didn't seem to be working, but there was an opportunity here with an incendiary grenade, and as you can see, you can actually see the reflection of that fire in the STG there in the gun. And you'll see other things too, like in puddles on the ground. If a rocket's coming overhead or a flame or whatever, that will be reflected in real time in that surface. So up to this point I've showed you what I thought were good examples of RTX working in BF5, but I do want to show you some bad examples as well, because I feel like there were areas where it missed the mark. Here, for example, in the darker areas, the puddles look great. But if you look at the bricks and the foliage, like, they've got this weird shiny effect on them. Bricks are not shiny. They shouldn't look like that. And here, it just looks a bit off, right? The floor, I don't know what's going on there. And the walls, for example, got these weird highlights on. And even the puddles sometimes in these darker areas, the contrast and the highlights seem like they're not quite working correctly there. And when you head inside, you've got a marble floor. Yeah, that's a bit shiny. Can understand that. Or is it tile? I don't know. But some of the wood on the walls here and the stairs, I think it's just a bit too much. Like, look at these stairs, for example, and the skirting board there, the door. That's a bit too much unless, you know, someone's just been around here constantly polishing the wood. It shouldn't look like this, right? This is a war-torn version of Rotterdam. It's just not right. Look how shiny those stairs are there. Nah, that's not. Got some tweaking to do there, but as I said, it was just a couple of weeks for them to implement this, so I know that they'll be looking at that right now thinking, oh my god, that looks terrible, let's fix it. And I'm sure they already have. It's quite an obvious thing, and I'm going to point it out though. You know, I think we've got to show the good and the bad, but here's a really bad example of the bricks. The bricks don't look like that. Kind of looks like it's been raining a bit, but there wasn't any rain at this particular moment on the level. Way too shiny, isn't it, that? Something odd. That looks worse than if RTX was turned off, in my opinion. There's a few bad examples for you. I did also play Tomb Raider and Metro. Metro looked incredible, and it felt like that was running at a decent frame rate, definitely over 60 FPS. Tomb Raider was running between 30 to 40 FPS because on some of the PCs they had the FPS counter up, and that was not a pleasant experience, so I'm hoping that they can increase the performance on that, but I don't know what GPU that was running on. As I said, BF5 was running on a 2080 Ti, which is the high-end flagship card at the moment in this new collection of cards. The lowest one is the 2070, and I think they said that one was $500 or £500 if you're in the UK. And at the conference, Jensen, who's the CEO of Nvidia, said that that will give you better performance than a Titan XP. So for $500, that's a pretty decent card, whether you've got RTX ray tracing or not. What I'm really interested in though is seeing what the 4K performance of these cards are without RTX, because the Titan XP was pretty decent at 4K 60 FPS on most titles. So the prospect of something like a 2080 Ti that's a lot more powerful than that running in 4K, maybe we could be pushing 100 to 120 FPS at 4K on a single GPU, not using ray tracing of course. So hopefully I can get my hands on one of these babies soon and do a bit of testing. So there it is guys, let me know your thoughts on RTX down in the comments below. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you didn't, a dislike. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you in the next one.